day 561 this was of the Trump administration, and the end of another week brings a new sign of Robert Mueller's increasing interest in one of Donald Trump's veteran advisors, his friend of 40 years, in fact, Roger Stone. NBC News reporting tonight that according to a source with direct knowledge, a member of Mueller's team met with a Stone associate named Kristen Davis. She first came to prominence when the New York City tabloids nicknamed her the Manhattan Madam after she said she provided prostitutes to the rich and powerful, including a former governor of New York. The NBC News report tonight reads, quote, Davis said in July that the Mueller representative who contacted her lawyer asked if she would accept a subpoena or if the FBI would need to serve it to her. She said her lawyer called the representative back to say she would accept it. Davis said she had worked for Stone for many years and other people who worked with Stone had already been subpoenaed. Today, Roger Stone released this statement, quote, Kristen Davis is a longtime friend and associate of mine. I am the godfather to her 2-year-old son. She knows nothing about alleged Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other impropriety related to the 2016 election, which I thought was the subject of this probe. Davis is one of at least 3 Stone associates said to be on Mueller's radar. The special counsel reportedly remains very interested in that June 2016 Trump Tower meeting, wants to talk to the Russian singer who helped set it up. Reports this week of a new angle in the Russia investigation, the ongoing negotiations over a possible Mueller interview, and the trial of Trump's former campaign chairman, let's not forget, all seem to be coinciding with the president's escalating attacks. He is all over Twitter. He held 2 rallies in just the space of the last 4 days. He's got another one in Ohio tomorrow. Last night, he managed to discredit the Russia inquiry while mocking critics of his meeting with Putin.
In Helsinki, I had a great meeting with Putin. We discussed everything. I had a great meeting. We got along really well. By the way, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. That's a really good thing. Now, we're being hindered by the Russian hoax. It's a hoax, okay?
Earlier this week, he wrote, quote, Attorney General Jeff Sessions should stop this rigged witch hunt right now. Bob Mueller's totally conflicted, and his 17 angry Democrats that are doing his dirty work are a disgrace to the USA. His concern about Paul Manafort's financial crimes trial comes out in this posting, quote, Paul Manafort worked for Ronald Reagan, Bob Dole, and many other highly prominent and respected political leaders. He worked for me for a very short time. Why didn't government tell me he was under investigation? These old charges have nothing to do with collusion, a hoax. But Trump reserves some of his sharpest attacks for his critics and the news media.
Even these people back here, these horrible, horrendous people, even these people back there stand, look at it. It looks like the Academy Awards. There's so many. You ever see this? Let's say I'm running against Pocahontas or Crazy Bernie. I tell you, I got to hand it to Bernie. I saw him up there the other day. That hair is getting whiter and whiter. I had Obamacare done, except one guy at 2 o'clock in the morning went in and said, you know who the new leader is? Maxine Waters. Very low IQ. Low IQ. They can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news.
On that note, let's bring in our leadoff panel for a Friday night. Jonathan Allen, NBC News national political reporter and co-author of the bestseller Shattered about the Hillary campaign. Jill Wine-Banks, attorney and former assistant Watergate special counsel. Jonathan Lemire, White House reporter for the Associated Press. If it's Friday, it must be New Jersey. And Jackie Combs, White House editor for the Los Angeles Times. Welcome to you all. Mr. Lemire, covering the vacationing president. I'd like to begin with you. By the way, as long as presidents have vacationed, White Houses have rushed in to say, oh, no, this is a working vacation. So calling this a working vacation is one of the most traditional things this White House has ever done. Having established that, you reported just days ago, Jonathan, this president was in a very dark place. Is he in any brighter confines, even including the fact that he likes rallies like that for what we just saw?
Hey, Brian. Well, he is in one of the nation's greatest states tonight. And he won't be here for long, though, as he heads back to Ohio tomorrow for a rally, as you said. Last night, though, when he was in Pennsylvania, I think betrayed where his mood was. Though he certainly was at times jovial and sort of jocular with the crowd, he had a lot of venom, shall we say, towards the media. And it came, of course, just hours after his entire national security staff finally did what so many people have wanted to hear for a long time, to sort of chastise Russia for their election interference in 2016 and outline steps to prevent them from doing it again, while sounding the alarm that, yes, this threat is still very real from Moscow, and it should be taken seriously. Of course, what happens later, just 6 hours later in northeastern Pennsylvania, the president downplays it, suggests the whole thing is a hoax, and then turns withering scorn on the media that was there, suggesting that we were treating him unfairly, sort of reappropriating the idea of fake news, no longer as his criticism of a report that he thinks is inaccurate, but rather just a report that he thinks is unfair or, unkind to him, and therefore, in labeling us sort of his enemy. Though he didn't use enemy of the state yesterday, he certainly described us as, disgusting, horrible people. This is the White House, as you said, is suggesting this is a working vacation. He made a series of phone calls today to lawmakers, the press pool. We didn't lay eyes on him, but he'll be back out there again tomorrow. And a day after behaving himself on Twitter like he did today, I think we all expect that once again, it won't just be the news media in his crosshairs, but it will be this Russia probe, which has followed him throughout, whether he's in the White House or here in Bedminster.
John Allen, you covered last night's tour de force in Wilkes-Barre. What did you see and note in the arena that perhaps wasn't obvious on television?
Well, I was one of the horribles. I guess it rhymes with deplorables, the difference being the news media is just trying to report the facts. I can only imagine what the president thinks of the people who are actually opposing him politically. This rally was a pretty boisterous one, and I think Jonathan was absolutely right. Having been at a rally in Tampa earlier this week, the president was pretty pumped up, pretty jazzed up, and pretty venomous, as Jonathan said, compared to how he was earlier in the week. He's obviously feeling a lot of pressure. But one of the things I noticed yesterday was he really emphasized immigration in this particular speech. He was in a part of the country that has seen a big influx of Hispanic immigrants over the course of the last decade or so. It's a big issue for his base. He went to all of those, and he played some of them earlier, some of those greatest hits, whether it's Maxine Waters or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, certainly referencing some of the other greatest hits. And what's important about that, Brian, is as he's ramping up for the midterms, he's not really trying to expand the Republican base, but really just fire up his own supporters and get them energized. He has seen a period in his presidency throughout his presidency that's been very static in terms of approval ratings. So if his party's going to win in the midterm elections, if it's going to preserve its majorities in the Senate and the House, it's going to be on the basis of every last Republican turning out, and particularly every last base supporter. So I think we can expect to hear more and more of what we heard last night.
Jackie Combs, you've covered a story or two in the pantheon of bad weeks for Donald Trump, noting that this one started with him telling the AG he should end the Mueller investigation. And just yesterday, after his intelligence community came out, talked about the Russia threat, he went out and called it a hoax in Wilkes-Barre. Where does this rank in the short history of bad weeks of the Trump presidency?
I actually think it's no worse, really, than some of the worst. But when you look at it substantively, it was really important, because when you think about it, here we are, more than a year and a half after he's taken office, and we're coming up on 2 years since he was elected. The unanimous consensus of the intelligence community of this country is that we were attacked by our biggest adversary, Russia. And for the first time in the past week, he presided over a meeting, the first time a meeting of his National Security Council. It lasted somewhere between under an hour, maybe just a half hour, before he went off to Bedminster to his golf club for last weekend. So this week, because the administration feels so on the defensive that they're not doing enough, we're just 3 months away from a midterm election where the intelligence community is saying that Russia is continuing to try to subvert our elections. They bring 5 top national security officials before the press corps in the briefing room to say something the president himself has never said publicly. Now, that was a tableau that should have been played out in the East Room of the White House, perhaps, with the president himself as the maestro at the mic. Instead, the next we see the president is, as your guests have said, as you've said, was there in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, before a crowd of, his adoring supporters, in which he's calling it a hoax. It's a wonder to me that some of these people haven't resigned, but I think it comes back to the original sentiment that a lot of people had joining this administration. They're doing this for their country. They're doing it to, in effect, I mean, it's not going too far to say to protect this country from the president.
Jill, Jackie just said a series of really important things, and now we need to know what it looks like from a lawyer's perspective. If you were Rudy Giuliani or Jay Sekulow or the White House counsel or the Raskins, attorneys at law, how would you view this past week?
I would be very concerned. I think that the president's actions have been more obstruction. There's no question that his tweets saying that Attorney General Sessions should stop the investigation is an active act of obstruction of justice. I also think that his tweet that the hoax and the Manafort trial, saying that there's no collusion there and the trial's a hoax, could be seen as jury tampering. He is clearly playing to his base and doing everything he can to undermine the Russia investigation. He has done nothing to protect the country, and I think it's a serious problem for him from a legal perspective. It's really bad.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.